woke up in a hospital bed, ribs aching, hip throbbing, mouth tasting like metal, and for a split second I thought someone's going to care for me. Right. But then, instead of comfort, my parents handed me a single piece of paper. All business, all demand, no check-ins, no soft words, just expectations. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. Something about betrayal, about realizing you're kind of on your own. Stick around, because what happened next, it's wild. I woke up to this relentless beeping, that synthetic, rhythmic kind that feels like it's syncing with the pounding in my head. Beep, throb, beep. Ugh, my eyelids felt like they were glued shut with lead. I tried to move, tried to turn my head, but every shift sent bolts of pain shooting through my hip and ribs, stealing my breath before I could even gasp. My mouth tasted like copper, mixed with that sharp, antiseptic tang you can never really shake. And I lay there, disoriented, trying to piece together the fragments of what had happened. The memory hit in waves, the rain slamming against the windshield, the slick asphalt, the headlights of the truck crossing the line, the crunch of metal that sounded like the world splitting apart. Everything was hazy and sharp at once, a jumble of sensation and terror. A soft voice murmured, and I jolted, half expecting the room to be empty. A blur in blue scrubs hovered over me. "Easy, Ela? Easy?" she said. And there it was, the voice, calm, grounded, and for some reason, comforting. She explained gently that I was in the ICU, that I'd been in a car accident, that surgery had been performed on my hip and ribs. My brain struggled, memories slamming into one another in fragments, then crashing together in clarity. The car, the rain, my parents. My throat tightened as I croaked out a question. "Did you call Janice and Greg?" The words felt harsh in my own mouth. I couldn't say Mom and Dad, not in that moment. I needed to know if the people who actually cared the emergency contacts listed in my phone had been reached. I needed to know I wasn't completely alone in this wreckage of a body and mind. The nurse, kind and patient, said they were outside, waiting for me to wake up. Relief, cool and soothing, washed over me, dulling the fire in my hip for a few fleeting seconds. They were here, they had come, and in that instant, despite all the missed birthdays, the forgotten graduations, the phone calls that always ended with a favor requested, they were here. They had shown up when it mattered. "Yes," I whispered, barely audible, and the nurse gave a small nod, slipping quietly out of the room. I closed my eyes, bracing for what it meant to finally be met with genuine concern. I imagined Janice's face, crumpled with worry, eyes glistening, hands wringing with nerves. I pictured Greg, stoic yet tense, holding my hand, his usual facade of control faltering just enough to show he cared. I tried to prepare myself for the vulnerability, for the moment where I could let someone in, even just a crack, without feeling the familiar sting of disappointment. Opening my eyes slowly, I caught the first glimpse of them. Relief and a surge of gratitude collided with the lingering pain in my chest and hip. Janice and Greg were there, waiting, real and present. And I realized something that almost broke me into another wave of tears. My parents hadn't been the ones to rush to my side. It was my siblings, the people I had always thought were just part of the backdrop of my life. They had stepped into the space where parental care should have been. filling it with their concern, their attention, their quiet insistence that I was not alone. The sensation of shock and disbelief mingled with pain, both physical and emotional. My ribs ached with every breath. My hip reminded me sharply of its fragility, and yet the warmth of my siblings' presence was an unexpected balm. For so long, I had carried the silent weight of being emotionally invisible, doing my own laundry, making my own lunches, navigating life's small crises alone. And here, in this room filled with the sterile smell of antiseptic and the ceaseless beep of monitors, I felt a crack in the pattern. Someone saw me. Someone cared, not out of duty, not out of obligation, but because they genuinely wanted to be here. The memories of my parents' absence pressed against me, twisting my stomach into knots. How had I not seen it sooner? How had I allowed myself to believe that they could be counted on in moments that truly mattered? The stark contrast between the people who were there and those who weren't made a strange kind of clarity settle in my chest. My heart, fragile from trauma and pain, began to understand the subtle, insidious patterns of neglect that had shaped my life. The realization was painful, and yet oddly liberating. I could see it all now: the missed birthdays, the forgotten graduations, the constant prioritization of Ryan's whims over my needs, the quiet erasure of my existence in favor of appearances and convenience. I felt small, yes, fragile, still reeling from the accident, still navigating the throbbing waves of pain that seemed intent on reminding me of every fracture and bruise, but also strangely empowered. The people who had been my anchors, the ones who had truly shown up, were here. And they weren't expecting anything in return, not a signature, not a favor, just presence. And for the first time, I realized maybe I had been an orphan all along, but not in the way I thought, not in terms of blood, but in the emotional void my parents had left behind. And in that moment, even through pain, confusion, and the dizzying haze of the ICU, I felt the flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time, that I could survive. And maybe, just maybe, I wasn't truly alone. The door creaked open slowly, and I forced my heavy head to follow the movement. Janice stepped in first, pristine beige trench coat, hair perfectly in place, carrying that unmistakable air of control. She didn't even glance at the monitors, the tubes, the bruised landscape of my body. Behind her, Greg followed, checking his watch like he had somewhere urgent to be. Somewhere important. Somewhere not in the middle of my ICU room, where my body was still trying to stitch itself back together. "Hey," I croaked, my voice weak, cracked. My ribs burned with every breath. My hips screamed in protest even at the smallest shift. Janice's gaze met mine, sharp and quick, not warm, not soft, businesslike, like she was about to pitch me on a project instead of acknowledging that my body had been through hell. She was holding a manila folder, the kind you see in law offices or boardrooms. No flowers, no apology, no concern. Just that folder, like a gauntlet thrown in my lap. "Ila," she said briskly, not a note of care in her tone. "Thank God you're awake. Traffic was terrible. We've been waiting for 40 minutes. She placed the folder on the tray table with a shove that made the plastic bump against my cast. A sharp stab of nausea rolled through me, and I closed my eyes for a second, trying to collect myself. Greg leaned over the bed, hands gripping the rails, face unreadable. "Look, We don't have a lot of time. Ryan's in a bind, and since you're incapacitated, we need to get this sorted now. Not a single word about how I was. Not a word about the pain I was in. The confusion. The sheer vulnerability of being tethered to monitors and IVs. It was like they were talking to a conference table, not a person. I tried to wrap my head around what I was seeing. My body was screaming. Every breath a battle. My chest hollow with the shock of pain and betrayal. "What is this?" I whispered, my voice barely above the hum of the machines. Janice clicked a pen. The sound sharp, precise. "It's the paperwork for Ryan's business loan," she said. "The bank approved the structure, but they need a guarantor with your credit score and income. We told them you were eager to help." I stared at the folder, at her face. I searched for some sign, some flicker of concern, anything. But all I saw was impatience, like my life and my injuries were nothing but an inconvenience, a delay in completing a business transaction. My stomach knotted. "I just woke up," I said softly, the words feeling fragile and jagged in my throat. "I could have died." Greg didn't flinch. "And Ryan is waiting," he said evenly. Like that statement alone should erase all reason to pause, to consider my state. Just sign the bottom line. Janice's pen waved in front of me, baiting, prodding. "It's nothing now," she said. "It's a cosign. Costs you nothing at the moment, but it means everything to your brother. He's on the verge of a breakthrough with his crypto mining venture. He just needs hardware. You're the one with the fancy job, the condo, the least you can do." I tried to sit up, ignoring the shards of pain in my ribs, but the agony made me gasp sharply, tears pricking my eyes from sheer physical shock. My hip throbbed, my chest ached, and inside, the betrayal sank deep. 3 broken ribs, a shattered hip, and they wanted a signature, not care, not empathy, just a piece of paper to advance Ryan's interests. "I can't believe this," I said, my voice stronger now, fueled by a mixture of adrenaline and disbelief. "You're asking me for money now. I just woke up. I almost died. And you want me to sign a loan?" Janice exhaled that long, practiced sigh, the one I'd heard countless times as a kid whenever I needed help with homework or a ride. It wasn't relief. It wasn't concern. It was disdain. My existence, inconvenient. "It's a cosign, Ela. Nothing now. It matters to Ryan. You're the one with the financial means. It's the least you can do. The least I can do." The phrase hit me like a punch to the gut. My ribs ached in tandem with the sudden hollow in my chest. I tried to explain, to protest, but the words came out jagged, interrupted by gasps of pain. "I have 3 broken ribs. My hip is shattered. I need help. I need water." I need Janice clicked the pen again, capping it aggressively, glancing at Greg with that shrug that dismissed my agony entirely. "She's on meds. She's not thinking clearly. We can't use her signature if she's under the influence. It won't hold." Greg nodded once, almost as if he was validating the point. They would come back tomorrow, hoping the anesthesia wore off and I'd be more reasonable. Then they left, stepping out of the room as though they had just concluded a short meeting. The tray table sat there, folder in place, and the monitors beeped steadily. My water cup remained empty, my pillow unadjusted, my body alone with the silence that pressed down like concrete. I lay back, counting the holes in the ceiling tiles to distract myself from the pain and the hollow ache in my chest. 1, 2, 3. 100. The betrayal wasn't subtle, it was brutal. A calculated indifference that cut deeper than any broken bone. They hadn't come to comfort. They hadn't come to care. They had come to leverage my survival, my body, my life for a business transaction, and the realization made the hollow pit in my chest swell, echoing the monitor's beeping that had once been just sound. Now the soundtrack of my parents' cold, transactional priorities. Through the haze of pain, a small ember of resistance sparked inside me. My body screamed, my ribs burned, my hip throbbed, and yet that ember refused to be extinguished. I was not a signature. I was not a tool. Even here, bound by tubes and bruised flesh, I had to hold on to that ember. It was the first flicker of control I'd felt in what seemed like years. And as the door clicked shut behind them, leaving me with the mechanical beeping of monitors and my own ragged breathing, I realized something vital. Their expectations were not law. Their entitlement was not mine to shoulder. I could resist. I had to resist. Pain or no pain, this was mine to navigate. I was more than their transaction, more than a conduit for Ryan's ambitions. And that realization, as sharp and bitter as it was, became a lifeline, tethering me to the smallest shred of agency in the sterile, oppressive room. An hour later, the door opened again, and I flinched, expecting my parents to return with some new demand or a notary in tow. But it wasn't them. It was Sarah. Her hair was messy, her eyes red-rimmed, and she was carrying a massive teddy bear and a bouquet of flowers that looked like she'd raided the entire hospital gift shop. She practically sprinted to my bedside, dropping everything on the floor, and knelt beside me. Her hand found mine, gentle and grounding, and for the first time in hours, maybe days, I felt a spark of safety. Oh my God, Ela, she breathed, and the relief in her voice was tangible. I could feel it, like a wave washing over the panic and pain that had been knotting my chest. I came as soon as I saw your text. I was in a meeting and didn't see it for 20 minutes. I'm so sorry. Are you okay? What did the doctor say? Do you need ice? Do you need me to, make the truck driver pay? Her voice tumbled over itself in urgency, in care, in concern. Every word dripped with sincerity. I blinked at her, trying to focus through the haze of pain and exhaustion, and something inside me cracked. The contrast was so stark I could hardly breathe. My parents had left me, prioritizing a business loan over my life. And here was Sarah, bruised from lack of sleep, standing like a shield, ready to care for me without a second thought. Relief surged, warm and enveloping, and I felt the tension that had been clawing at my chest begin to ease. Just a little. Tears welled in my eyes, unbidden, unrestrained, and I didn't fight them. I couldn't. The sobs started quietly at first, rasping and low, but they grew. The kind that caught in your ribs, shaking you from the inside out. I hadn't realized how much I'd been holding in, how tight and desperate the coil of fear, pain, and betrayal had been wound. Sarah's hand never left mine, her thumb stroking small, soothing circles over my knuckles, grounding me, telling me wordlessly that I wasn't alone. I'm here, she said softly, leaning close, brushing strands of damp hair from my forehead. You're alive. You're safe. I've got you. And in that moment, the room shifted. The beeping of the monitors, the cold sterility of the ICU, the absence of my parents, all of it receded into the background. There was only her presence, steady and unwavering. I tried to speak through the sobs, my throat raw, my chest aching. My parents, they were here. They wanted me too. Sign the loan. The words were heavy, weighed down by disbelief and hurt. I choked, tears streaming down, and she squeezed my hand again, a silent affirmation that I didn't have to process it alone. They just left you, didn't they? She asked. Her voice calm but fierce, her eyes locking onto mine. I nodded, unable to form more than a strangled whisper. They left me, hooked up to 4 machines. They didn't even fill my water cup. Her expression hardened, and I felt that heat of protective fire radiating off her. Okay, she said, more firmly now. Okay, listen to me. They are done. You are not giving them a dime. You are not giving them a signature. You are going to recover, and you are going to let me handle the gatekeeping from now on. I inhaled deeply, the sharp pain in my ribs a reminder of my fragile reality, but also the first sense of empowerment I'd felt all day. Her presence, her fierce, loving insistence that I didn't have to comply, that I didn't have to bend to their manipulations, offered a strange kind of release. I realized, in the midst of my sobs, that this was family, chosen family, people who showed up when it mattered, who weren't interested in transactions, power, or control. Sarah's anger wasn't cruel. It was protective, nurturing, validating my pain while giving me the space to feel it without being swallowed by it. The difference was staggering. One pair of parents, detached and calculating, had left me to my pain to extract a signature. Sarah had entered carrying teddy bears and flowers, but more importantly, carrying care, carrying concern, carrying an unwavering message that I mattered, that I was seen. I let myself cling to that, letting the sobs continue, letting my body release months, maybe years of tension. I wasn't being dramatic or weak. I was alive, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like it was okay to feel that relief without guilt. She stayed with me, speaking softly between the cries, cooing gently, reminding me to breathe, to sip water, to let my body recover at its own pace. And in that quiet, intimate exchange, I realized something important. Family isn't always the people you're born to. Family is the people who show up, who sit through the pain with you, who offer their presence, unasked, unwavering. And Sarah, in those moments, embodied that truth in every gesture, every whispered word. I closed my eyes, finally letting my chest heave with sobs, letting my fingers curl around hers, the warmth of her hand grounding me. I realized I wasn't alone. I had someone who truly cared, someone who had my back, who would fight for me when the people who were supposed to love me had only tried to use me. The relief, the emotional release, was profound. My body ached, sure, but my spirit felt lighter, buoyed by the certainty that, for once, I wasn't facing the chaos alone. And in that room, amid the sterile monitors and the lingering pain, I began to understand the value of chosen family, the rare, luminous warmth of genuine care in a world that had been otherwise cold and indifferent. Growing up in my family was like living in 2 completely different worlds at the same time. On one side, there was Ryan, the miracle child. Everything he touched was celebrated. Every little thing he did inflated into some grand achievement. If he drew a stick figure, it was the next Picasso. If he failed a test, the teacher was incompetent, not him. Every success, every failure, every minor decision, it all revolved around him. like the rest of us were just satellites orbiting his life. And then there was me. I was 3 years older, but I might as well have been invisible. I wasn't neglected in the sense that there was no food or no roof over my head. Legally, financially, everything was in order, but emotionally I was a ghost. By the time I was 12, I was making my own lunches, doing my own laundry, even forging my parents' signatures on report cards because they couldn't be bothered to look. Birthdays passed without notice. Graduations came and went. Milestones blurred into nothingness. I learned early that I had to rely on myself, that waiting for recognition or support was a fool's game. College wasn't any different. I worked 2 jobs just to pay my tuition, graduated with honors, and clawed my way up the corporate ladder to a senior supply chain manager role. Everything I built alone. I didn't have the luxury of mistakes being overlooked or celebrated. Every step forward was hard-won, precise, calculated. Meanwhile, Ryan explored his passions at full throttle, funded and supported at every whim. When he decided he wanted to be a DJ at 22, Janice and Greg bought him $4,000 worth of equipment. He played 1 gig, got booed, and sold the setup for weed money. At 24, he tried real estate. Greg took out a second mortgage to help him flip a condemned house. Ryan gutted the kitchen and then got bored. $40,000 gone in a blink. And now, at 26, it was crypto mining. Same story, same pattern, same indulgence. The disparity wasn't just frustrating, it was systemic. Ryan wasn't reckless in the usual sense. He was indulged, coddled, protected from the consequences of his actions, while I was expected to navigate the world entirely alone, emotionally invisible, but legally and financially compliant. Janice had a knack for the guilt trip. Her disappointment was a weapon. We just want everyone to be happy. Ela, why do you have to make everything a conflict? And Greg was the enforcer, emotionless, transactional, seeing me as a high-yield asset and Ryan as a speculative investment to be nurtured at all costs. I could see the patterns early on. Every achievement I had, every milestone, was mine alone, met with neutral acknowledgement at best. Every failure or impulsive decision from Ryan became a family crisis, a story told and retold, a lesson in patience and support, which he rarely needed to earn. I didn't just carry myself. I carried the emotional labor, the practical logistics, and the silent burden of being the responsible one, the invisible one, the one who had to figure out how to survive in a household that prioritized appearances and favoritism over genuine care. Looking back, it's almost staggering how obvious it all was. I wasn't just ignored, I was trained to accept the pattern, to anticipate my own erasure, to internalize the idea that my needs were secondary. And Ryan, he was trained to expect indulgence, to see the world as a revolving stage of resources and safety nets provided by parents who mistook favoritism for love. Every failure he had, every misstep, was cushioned. Every success was inflated. And I was left to navigate the chasm between recognition and reality entirely alone, building resilience in a vacuum. Strength from necessity, wisdom from forced observation. And now, as I sat in that hospital bed, bruised, broken, and betrayed, I could see it all with crystalline clarity. My life, my careful planning, my measured successes, they were mine, entirely, forged without reliance on anyone who should have supported me unconditionally. And Ryan, In all his ventures, all his failures, all his whims, had always been the center of the universe, with a family orbiting his every need, ready to shield, to bail out, to smooth over. The systemic bias wasn't just unfair, it was foundational. It dictated who received care, who was expected to endure, who could rely on others, and who had to rely entirely on themselves. And I realized, with a bitter mixture of anger and clarity, that this wasn't about mistakes or character. It was about the ecosystem of our family, the unspoken hierarchy that had been in place for decades. Ryan, the favored son, protected and supported in perpetuity. Me, the older sibling, the responsible one, emotionally invisible and expected to manage, endure, and perform without acknowledgement. It was a brutal truth, but in that moment, acknowledging it became a step toward understanding the landscape I had been navigating all my life, and a small, stubborn spark of empowerment began to flicker inside me. The next part of my recovery, the part where adrenaline replaced the pain just enough for me to focus, became all about finding the truth. I wasn't just lying in that hospital bed anymore. I was a detective, piecing together a puzzle my parents and Ryan had been trying to force me to complete blindly. I reached for the manila folder, my fingers trembling slightly, pain radiating up my ribs with every move. The pages rattled under my fingers. Quantum Hash, LLC. The company name, generic, impersonal, almost laughably so. But there was a vendor listed, Techer Solutions via eBay, with an invoice totaling $45,000. My gut clenched. 45 grand. Just like that. For mining rigs, supposedly. My first thought that's steep for a starter setup, but maybe not impossible. I needed to see the details. I powered up my laptop, the glow of the screen cutting through the haze of the sterile ICU room. Sarah had already returned, sitting beside me, keeping the tray table steady. I muttered instructions as my fingers flew across the keys. Checking the vendor first. Google TechCore Solutions eBay. I said, nothing. Sarah frowned, double-checked spelling, then shook her head. There's a TechCore that sells refurbished printers in Ohio, but no mining rigs, she said. My stomach sank. I had to dig deeper. I pulled up the state business registry for the address listed on the invoice. Residential, a rented home, a suburb about 40 minutes from where my parents lived. Rented 3 months ago. Okay, odd, but still not concrete proof. Then I pulled up the LLC registration, looking for the registered agent, Ryan Miller. Not surprising. But next, I checked the EIN number on the invoice. Invalid, a dead end. Bank routing number legit, but that was just the shell. My mind raced. The red flags weren't subtle anymore. They were screaming. I dug into a consumer fraud database I had access to through work. Something meant for vetting international suppliers. Not personal use, but desperate times. Right, I plugged in the LLC name. The registered agent, Ryan owns the company. Expected, but the EIN didn't exist. The bank info was valid, but nothing else lined up. The vendor fake, invoice forge. My pulse spiked. My breath caught. This wasn't a business venture. It couldn't be. Sarah leaned in, her brow furrowed, eyes wide. What are you finding? I didn't answer immediately. My fingers trembled, and I had to take a shaky breath. Then, words out of my mouth before I could stop them. He's not buying equipment. He's not mining crypto. I think he's gambling. Sarah's face went pale. Gambling, I nodded, opening a new tab, pulling up a username I remembered seeing on Ryan's laptop during a Thanksgiving visit years ago, Crypto King RM. First social platforms, nothing. Specialized forums, jackpot, high-stakes poker, Bitcoin accepted, active 3 days ago, posts bragging about huge swings, asking for bridge loans, desperate attempts to cover losses. I swallowed hard. It all fit. He wasn't running a business. He was chasing losses, trying to recoup through risky bets. The invoice, the fake vendor, a ruse to get me to co-sign so that when the inevitable happened, the bank came after me, not him. My stomach turned. Sarah gasped, leaning closer. And your parents? They don't know, right? I shook my head slowly, closing the laptop for a moment, letting the reality settle. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were relying on my signature to shield Ryan from consequences. My blood ran cold. The horror of it wasn't just about the money or the deception, it was about intent. They weren't just negligent. They were manipulative, using my survival, my integrity, to cover for his recklessness. I opened the laptop again. Every click, every search made the narrative clearer. Crypto King RM on forums, desperate for advice, desperate for loans, desperate enough to risk anyone else's money. Each new piece of information built tension in my chest. Rage, fear, frustration, they all collided, creating a pressure I could feel in my ribs as sharply as the broken bones themselves. I had to stay calm. I had to process, methodically, like I always did when tracking suppliers or vetting international vendors. I dug deeper into the registered address, pulled up property records, cross-checked social media, pieced together connections between this supposed business and Ryan's online activity. Each dead end confirmed my growing suspicion he was a follower, not a mastermind, a gambler, chasing losses, reliant on parental enabling, and now trying to ensnare me into the spiral. My mind raced, calculating leverage, risks, and exposure. $45,000, illegal if I signed, federal implications, my job, my license, everything on the line, and they thought I would comply. They thought my pain and disorientation would be enough to make me cave. I leaned back against the pillows, eyes narrowing at the screen. The pattern was unmistakable. Ryan was not a businessman. He was addicted, cornered, and desperate. And my parents, blinded by obsession with their golden child, were ready to make me complicit. The realization was sharp, cold, and horrifying. I could feel the adrenaline and the pain commingling, heightening every sense. I was trapped in a room full of monitors and machines, yet my mind was racing faster than it ever had. The stakes were real, immediate, dangerous, not abstract, not just a lesson in family dysfunction. This was legal, financial, and physical peril all wrapped together, and I had to untangle it before it was too late. Sarah's hand on my shoulder brought me back to the moment. "What do we do?" she asked, voice steady but tense. I exhaled slowly, letting a fraction of the panic ease, focusing. We need leverage, documents, trust papers, anything that gives us control. I'm not signing, not now, not ever. We figure out what's real, what's fake, and we protect ourselves. The vendor, the LLC, the invoice, it's all a lie. I need you to go to my apartment, get the safe, the trust documents, the will, everything. We prepare before they even think to try again. Her eyes widened, but she didn't hesitate. She nodded, understanding immediately. That's the difference. She was family, the kind that showed up, who acted. She wasn't concerned with status or appearances. She was concerned with protection. And as I set my fingers to the keyboard again, mapping the fraud, tracing the lies, and confirming the scope of Ryan's desperation, I realized that while my body was injured, my mind had never been sharper. The truth was in front of me, terrifying, and now I had a plan. For the first time that day, I felt a flicker of control amidst the chaos. Once we realized just how deep the rabbit hole went, Sarah and I had to act fast. My body was a battlefield of pain, every movement a sharp reminder of the accident, but my mind was alert, focused, plotting each step like a chess game. We started with the trust documents from Aunt Marie, the safety net she had left me when the rest of my family turned a blind eye. Sarah fetched the documents from my apartment while I stayed propped up in bed, ribs burning with every slight twist, hip throbbing with every shift, but eyes locked on the laptop, planning our next moves. We mapped out the strategy like a mission first. Secure the papers, then the will, then make sure no one could interfere. Each step had to be precise. Timing, order, and control mattered more than ever. Sarah carried the weight of the physical actions, retrieving, organizing, and transporting the documents while I directed, cross-checking, and confirming every detail. We couldn't afford a mistake, one slip, and the leverage we were gathering could slip right through our fingers. I dictated from the bed, wincing with each movement, giving her instructions for what to prioritize in the safe, the trust documents, the deed to the condo, a copy of my updated will. Each item was a key to securing my independence and safety, a barrier against my parents' relentless attempts to exploit me. Sarah moved efficiently, her hands sure and steady. As she navigated through the apartment, I imagined her quietly, determinedly packing each piece into the secure envelope, carefully logging and double-checking everything. My mind couldn't physically move the pieces, but it could orchestrate the plan. We took breaks because my body demanded them. Even a small shift could set off a chain of pain that left me gasping. But the pauses never broke our focus. I sipped water through a straw, felt the dull throb in my hip, the knife-like stabbing in my ribs, and reminded myself that every pang was temporary. The urgency was permanent. Every second counted. We had to be ready before my parents realized I was awake and alert enough to resist their next move. We talked strategy, quietly, almost like a whisper to keep the ICU from noticing. Who would arrive first? What excuses they'd use? What tactics they might try? We ran through every scenario: guilt, threats, bribery, lies they would use, everything they knew, every trick they had honed for decades. But we had a plan. The trust documents and will were a shield, an arsenal, a way to regain some control over a situation that had been spiraling out of my reach for years. As we worked, I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't had since the accident. Pain sharpened my focus rather than dulling it. My body was injured, yes, but my mind was pristine, operating at a strategic level that was almost exhilarating despite the circumstances. Every move we made, every document secured, every detail cross-checked was a step back toward autonomy. The sense of taking control, even a little, was intoxicating. Sarah's presence was the anchor. Her calm, precise actions allowed me to maintain focus. Her unwavering support reminded me that I didn't have to face the aftermath alone, that I had someone to back me up against the relentless pressure of my family. I felt the weight of years of manipulation lift slightly with each secured document, each confirmation of control. It wasn't just about money or signatures, it was about survival, about setting boundaries, about asserting that I was not to be used or coerced. By the time she returned with the envelope of documents, I felt a small, resolute smile curl on my lips. Despite the pain, despite the fatigue, despite the pounding of my head and the ache of my broken body, we had achieved something concrete. We had turned the tables, creating leverage and reclaiming power over our own situation. I could feel the shift, almost tangible, like the room itself was breathing a sigh of relief. I leaned back, laptop open, documents stacked, a strategic plan forming in my mind, and allowed myself a deep breath. The urgency and fear remained, yes, but it was tempered by the satisfaction of preparation. The sense of empowerment that comes from taking control when chaos threatens to dominate. We were ready to confront, ready to protect, ready to reclaim not just the documents, but my autonomy, my financial safety, my right to decide for myself. Every strategy we laid out, every detail secured, was a small victory in the fight against the manipulation and betrayal I had endured for years. And in that quiet, calculated preparation, with my body screaming in protest and my mind razor sharp, I realized something profound for the first time in a long time. I wasn't at the mercy of my family. I had a plan, I had leverage, I had Sarah, and together we were ready to navigate whatever came next, armed with clarity, determination, and the cold, precise force of justice on our side. The confrontation started almost immediately after we had our strategy in place. Janice returned first, carrying a Tupperware container and wearing that soft pastel cardigan, the one that always made her seem like the good cop when she wanted to manipulate me. "Hello, sweetie," she said, setting the container on the tray table. "I made your favorite chicken soup. I know the hospital food is dreadful." I watched her every movement, every careful gesture, knowing it was a performance. Nothing she did came from concern. It was calculated, aimed at triggering a response from the child she expected to obey. I said thank you, neutrally, sipping the soup she offered, letting the steam and warmth fill the room while I braced myself. Her tone shifted almost immediately into urgency, concern masquerading as logic. "Your father is well. He's upset. He feels like you were disrespectful yesterday." "I was disrespectful?" I asked, voice flat. "He threatened to disown me." Janice waved it off. "He was just emotional. He's under pressure. Ryan is fragile. You know how high-strung he can be. He needs your support." I set the spoon down carefully, my ribs flaring in protest at the smallest twist of my torso. "I'm not signing anything. Not now. Not ever." My voice was steady, but inside, my chest burned. I could feel the old fear pressing against me. Memories of being cornered as a teenager, manipulated into doing what they wanted. But the surge of resolve kept me anchored. Her eyes flickered, a momentary lapse of the performance she was trying to maintain. "Don't take it personally. He's just stressed. He's a visionary. You've always been the responsible one. Surely you can help." I leaned back against the pillows, hips screaming with every shift, ribs tightening painfully. No, I'm not signing. I've recovered enough to think clearly, and I'm not a tool for your schemes. I am not Ryan's safety net, and I'm done being manipulated by you both. Greg arrived soon after, carrying coffee, looking relaxed, as if strolling into a living room rather than a hospital ICU. He set the manila folder on the tray table again. We spoke to the bank manager this morning. If we get the fax over by noon, we can make the cutoff for the wire transfer. Ryan is waiting in the car. He didn't want to overwhelm you. The air felt like it thickened, every breath a battle, the throbbing of my hip matching the pounding in my chest. Overwhelm me, I echoed, incredulous. You texted me to sign a loan while I was recovering from surgery, and now you're calling that not overwhelming. My words were ragged, jagged from both the pain and the rising tension. Janice leaned closer, smile faltering, trying the good cop routine again. Oh, Ila, don't take it personally. It's for Ryan. You're helping family. Surely you understand. No, I don't understand, I said firmly, voice rising slightly. I understand that you're trying to make me complicit in a scheme I will not participate in. I understand that my consent doesn't matter to you. I understand that you believe fear and manipulation will work. I understand the whole pattern, and I will not comply. Greg's face darkened. You listen to me, he said, stepping closer, leaning over the bed like he did when I was 16. You're sitting on a pile of cash, living in that fancy apartment, acting like you're better than us. You're going to sign that paper, or forget about coming home for Christmas. Forget about being part of our lives. I froze for a moment, the threat hitting like a blunt object. My ribs burned, my hip throbbed, but clarity overrode panic. My throat went dry. I inhaled slowly, then exhaled a long, shuddering breath. Did he really think that was a threat I muttered to Sarah, my voice low but sharp? She remained beside me, hands steady on mine, a grounding presence. You're not giving them a dime, she reminded me quietly. Not today, not ever. Focus on control, not fear. I straightened in the bed as best I could, grimacing with each movement. I am not signing that paper. Not today, not ever. The room was silent except for the rhythmic whoosh of the oxygen machine and the faint murmur of the hospital. P.A. Greg's sneer turned into frustration. You're ungrateful. You'll regret this. You'll be alone. I've been alone my whole life, I replied, voice calm but resolute. I'm just finally making it official. The door clicked behind them, leaving me with a sharp hum of machines and Sarah's reassuring presence. But the tension didn't end there. Hours later, my body still fragile. We heard whispers of movement in the lobby. Janice had returned. This time with a group of people, claiming clergy and extended family, demanding a spiritual intervention. Sarah's eyes widened, but I nodded. Let them in. I needed witnesses. I needed the truth in front of them. 10 minutes later, the room was crowded. Janice looked like a grieving widow. Aunt Linda scowled. Pastor Evans's tone was soothing yet patronizing. They tried to gaslight me, tell the story that I had been unstable, that I had attacked my father, that my actions were a product of paranoia. I stayed calm, moving gingerly to ignore the pain that stabbed through my hip and ribs. Sarah connected the phone to the speaker and played the footage of Greg breaking into my apartment. The sound of boots on the wood, glass shattering, the rage in Greg's voice, proof that my parents' actions were deliberate, manipulative, and criminal. Aunt Linda and the pastor were stunned. Janice shrank, the facade cracking. I leaned forward, voice steady despite the physical pain. He tried to make me commit federal bank fraud from my hospital bed. He broke into my apartment, and you all witnessed it. Security arrived moments later, escorting them out, leaving a heavy silence behind. And for the first time, the air in the room felt clean, safe, and under my control. I was injured, yes, but unbroken. The repeated confrontations had been tense, painful, emotionally draining, but boundaries were set. I refused to comply, called for help when necessary, and stood firm. I realized that my physical discomfort could not override my emotional resilience. I had taken back control of my life, and nothing, not threats, guilt, or intimidation, could take that from me. The aftermath was almost surreal. In the days following the hospital confrontation, the legal system moved swiftly. My father, Greg, was arrested for breaking and entering, malicious destruction of property, and other charges stemming from the intrusion into my apartment. Ryan's gambling debts and illegal activity caught up with him too. He was arrested, charged with assault at the hospital, and later for identity theft related to credit cards he had opened in my name. The collection agency and the so-called loan sharks faded into the background as the law took control. Janice, once so poised and commanding, found herself exposed and powerless. The empire she had tried to maintain, built on manipulation and control, crumbled around her. The family home, the financial safety nets she relied on, all became casualties of their recklessness. She moved into a small one-bedroom apartment, no longer the matriarch, no longer the orchestrator. Greg faced probation, community service, and a restraining order that ensured he stayed far from me, while Ryan was placed into a facility with mandatory counseling. The collapse of their carefully constructed world was both astonishing and satisfying in a quiet, resolute way. And I was free, not just free in the legal sense, but free emotionally, mentally, physically. My body still ached, the scar on my side a map of survival. But I could breathe without the weight of their expectations pressing down on me. I rebuilt my life deliberately, with intention, anchored in autonomy and self-made success. The townhouse I moved into was in a gated community, 24-hour security, a feature that had once seemed unnecessary but now felt like a tangible boundary between me and chaos. I returned to work, was promoted to director of operations, and reclaimed the rhythm and order I had fought to create throughout my life. Even in moments of quiet, sitting on the balcony with the autumn air crisp around me, I reflected on everything I had endured. I thought about the little girl who had once waited by the window, hoping that this time my parents would notice, hoping for validation that never came. The hospital room, the ICU, the confrontation, the arrests, they were all proof that I had survived not just physically, but emotionally and strategically. I had learned the value of boundaries, the power of preparation, the strength of choosing family that truly cares. Sarah remained my constant, a reminder that chosen family, the people who show up without calculation or expectation, can be more protective, more loyal, and more loving than those related by blood. We celebrated milestones together, shared moments of joy, and leaned on each other when the weight of the past threatened to creep back. And in those moments, I realized that the life I had built free from manipulation and grounded in self-reliance, was the greatest gift I could give myself. I found satisfaction in the knowledge that I had not only protected myself, but had done so strategically, legally, and morally. The adrenaline of crisis had given way to the calm of resolution. I was safe. I was in control. The chaos, the manipulation, the betrayal, all of it was behind me. And while scars remained, physical and emotional, they were evidence not of weakness, but of endurance, resourcefulness, and empowerment. Looking out over the golden leaves turning in autumn, feeling the crisp air on my face, I understood something profound raising myself, fighting for my own autonomy, carving out a life without relying on anyone who would exploit me, had shaped me into someone resilient, capable, and unshakable. I had spent 29 years cultivating self-reliance, and now I could finally enjoy the fruits of that labor. My past didn't define me, my choices did. For the first time in my life, I felt secure, not because someone else had granted it, but because I had claimed it. I had the documents, the will, the safe, and the knowledge to protect myself. I had chosen family who supported me, and I had a life built on my terms. Relief settled deep in my chest, a steady, quiet satisfaction that I carried with me through each day. The legal fallout had resolved, the threats were neutralized, and I could finally breathe without the weight of fear, manipulation, or obligation pressing down. In these quiet moments, as I sipped tea or clinked glasses with Sarah, I reflected on the journey, the pain, the betrayal, the adrenaline, the careful strategizing, and finally, the victory. It was mine, hard-won, deliberate, complete, and I smiled, not because the past was erased, but because I had emerged from it stronger, wiser, and entirely, undeniably myself. Looking back, I realized the journey wasn't just about surviving my parents' manipulation or Ryan's recklessness. It was about claiming my own life. I found strength in boundaries, trust in chosen family, and power in self-reliance. Every challenge taught me that I could protect myself and build a life on my terms. If this story resonated, stick around for more tales of resilience and empowerment. Hit like if you felt the tension, and consider subscribing so you don't miss what's next.